It's Friday. Allan Aguirre with your Incorruptible 2-minute warning. So, here we go. Gail, I still don't, saying that Bill Cloud is also doing a study on Romans. I was told by a couple other people that there's like 2 or 3 other ministries doing series or teachings on Romans. And I did not know that when we decided to do this. I had no idea. What does that say? Well, it does, right? There's one Spirit and there's one doctrine. And the Spirit is telling us all the same thing. I love it when that happens because, see, unlike most people, I know I can get it wrong. I know I can be deceived. I know I can have absolutely no clue about what I'm doing. So it's always a good thing when you know the Holy Spirit is telling you to do something, and then it's confirmed by others doing it, because that's what the Holy Spirit does. So, as you can see, Gail is saying she's enjoying the differences and similarities. I would love to know what the differences are. I don't have time to go watch all these other people, what they're saying, but. Here's what I do know. I was going to write this down, but I didn't. Here's where we're going with this as an example. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. There are more than I believe there's 14 chapters in this book, in this letter, and there are more than 24 references, teachings on, there's more than, there's 16 chapters in this book. There are more than 24 passages in Romans teaching Torah, teaching the Torah to Gentile believers, which all we need is 2 to 3 witnesses to make a point, you can quote me Galatians all day long, but what you're believing Galatians is saying is going to contradict the rest of Paul's writings. So then that cancels Paul out, which makes him a false apostle. You shouldn't be quoting him if we can prove to you that what you think Paul is saying is contradicting the greater message that Paul taught. Then you're propagating a false prophet, a false apostle. Whereas we're saying, right, if you go to, I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV. I'm not a lawyer, but I know enough law, entertainment contract law, to know that in a court of law, you have the burden of proof. I've been showing the burden of proof of where Paul and Jesus declare, prove that Torah has not, that the observing, the keeping of, the walking in Torah observance, right, is still it's still a thing. And it's not just for Jews, it's for believers, right? The feasts of Leviticus 23 aren't Jewish holidays. No, God said, these are my feasts. He didn't say, oh, these are Jewish feasts for Jews. He didn't say that. Christianity says that. In the same way, with over 24 passages that are pro-Torah, that are talking about and explaining how for Gentiles to keep God's covenants in just one letter to Romans, to Gentiles, is enough to disqualify what it is Christianity thinks Paul is saying, which he never said and isn't saying. Just the fact that Paul's confession before leaving Judea to Rome in Acts 24 is that he's when it comes to the law and the prophets, he's in full compliance, and he's in full compliance, and he keeps them. That alone, right? Jesus, one verse, Matthew 17, 5:17. I didn't come to do away with the law and the prophets. I came to fulfill it. You can't say that fulfill means that he did away with them, because then he's saying, then Jesus is lying. I didn't come to do away with the law. I came to do away. I know what you're thinking. You think I came to do away with the law. I didn't come to do away with the law. I came to do away with the law. Now that sounds like Christianity, because it sounds like BS. It sounds like a con. You're trying to con somebody. See, that sounds like Christianity, and that's how Christianity reads Matthew 5:17. And it's 1,000% incorrect. Again, they take one verse theology, one verse doctrine. That's what they're taught in seminary. You know, have you ever wondered why so many churches, the people, they preach one verse? They only preach one verse at a time, and it's out of context. It's not even in context within itself. They teach one verse because that's what they're taught in seminary, and it's incorrect. You can't do that. You can't just take verse 5:17, because verse 18 and 19 destroys your position that he's done away with it. Anyway, Bill Claude does not go in verse by verse. You've been that. So, over 24 passages, starting in chapter 2 next week, regarding instruction on obedience and on keeping the Torah. If you want to believe the false narrative of Christianity that Jesus did away with the law, the Torah, and that you as a Gentile believer don't have to keep it. You can eat whatever you want. You can drink whatever you want. You can observe any day that you want as a Sabbath. You can keep the feast. You cannot keep the feast. You don't have to keep the feast. You know, here's the thing. You're in the matrix, buddy, and you will die to defend the matrix of Christmas and Easter. You just will. You will do everything you can to defend the Catholic man-made fake holy days of Christmas and Easter, and say that you don't have to keep Passover, for example. I can sit here and just tell you how wrong you are all day long, but I don't like throwing my pearls, if you know what I mean. So, what are we reading so far in chapter 1? Well, Paul's writing about God's wrath on unrighteousness. God's wrath on unrighteous people that do unrighteousness. And what's going on with those people. And all you have to do is look outside your window and you'll see these people that are being defined here. And see, we have come to the point where you cannot tell sinners that they're sinners. And you can't tell sinners that they're sinners, let alone what the Bible says happens to sinners. You can't do that anymore. You can actually, you'll be censored. You can have your YouTube and your Facebook messed with by them for hate speech. And yeah, that's where we are at in the United States of America in April of 2023. You can't tell somebody that what they're doing, and then you can't, and if you list the items of what they're doing and then tag it with sin, you can't do that. You cannot tell somebody that what they're doing is sin. You can't tell somebody they're a sinner, and you can't tell them what the consequence of sin is, and you can't tell them that because you're doing X, Y, Z, you're a sinner and you're going to die and go to hell. You can't say that in 2023. It's whatever you want to call it, phobia, right? Whatever sin, it's sin phobia. Right? Because it depends on what the sin is, depends what your phobia is, right? We're the one that have the mental illness. We're the ones that are judgmental. We're the ones that are wrong. We're the ones that live in an echo chamber. Well, of course I live in an echo chamber, sunshine. Because my Bible says so you can't say that. But my Bible says you're not going to be in heaven. Heaven is an echo chamber. The kingdom of heaven is an echo chamber because it's not inclusive, and it lists who, based on what you're doing, what's called unrighteousness and unrighteous people, who isn't going to be there. And you can't say that. You can't say that there's a heaven, there's a hell. This is what happens, and if you do X, Y, Z, you'll go to heaven, and if you do X, Y, Z, you'll go to hell. You can't say that. They can come after you. They can come at you. We ended yesterday's 2-minute warning. Nothing like a little bit of Pauline hate speech first thing in the morning, right? I walked upstairs after the 2-minute warning, and my wife looks at me and she goes, "What did you do?" I'm like, "I didn't do anything. I read Paul, chapter 1 of Romans, and it's considered hate speech now, because you can't tell people that what they're doing is unrighteous, making them unrighteous, and that they're involved with unrighteousness." And then how does Paul end the chapter? Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, yet not only do they keep doing them, but they applaud others who do the same, and they groom each other to do the same. Have you ever considered what it must have been like to live between Genesis chapter 4? Is that when, I believe it is. Let me look. Let me take a look. I'm thinking of a particular Jared. When did Jared live? Does he show up in Genesis chapter 4? It's in the days of Jared. Cain knew his wife, verse 17. Lamech, Adam knew his wife. Okay, Adam's descendants to Noah. I know I didn't write it, but I can be liable for being that messenger. I mean, I'm not worried about it. I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. All right, we have a genealogy in chapter 5. For chapter 6, when man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them. All right, let me find out. Jareth, I think, is mentioned earlier than chapter 6, right? Let me see. Where is Jareth or Jared? I think it's, Jared. Jareth is the Goblin King in Labyrinth. Oh my gosh, where is Jared? 5:18. Thank you very much. All right. When Jared had lived 162 years, he fathered Enoch. Jared lived after he fathered Enoch 800 more years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Jared were 962 years. I believe he's mentioned before that, isn't he? Because it says that it was during the days of Jared the Watchers occurred. The Watchers came down during the days of Jared. And so after Enoch was born, he lived another 800 years. So there's a possibility that we have 8 centuries of Watchers and Nephilim. And that's what I'm trying to get to. Jared in the Bible. 6th generation descendant. Yeah, you're right. Genesis 5:18. Okay, so after Enoch was born, he lived 800 years. So let's go with that. Let's say, because we don't know when the Watchers came down. We know that they came down during the days of Jared. And Jared lived 900 years. So we can easily suggest that the Watchers and the Nephilim giants of Genesis 6 were on the earth. Well, see, we don't know if the Watchers or the Nephilim, how long do the Watchers of the Nephilim walk together on the earth? We don't know. Children. We don't know how long they were on the earth together. We do know that what happened with Enoch happened, and the Watchers were put into the bottomless pit, and I'm live, and the Nephilim were disembodied, and then their spirits were released on the earth. That all happened before Genesis 6. So, okay, let's say 500 years. My point is this. Have you ever stopped to consider what it must have been like to live on the earth from the days of Jared leading up to the flood of Noah? We're talking an insane amount of violence, death, blood. I mean, we're talking the earth was just a free-for-all of murder and mayhem. You got the Watchers doing who knows what with the DNA of animal, plant, and human, and you've got the giants who Enoch says were 600 feet tall, 625, something like that, devouring not just animals but humans as well. And they start turning on themselves. I mean, it's bad. Have you ever considered what life must have been like for a human being in those days? Let me put it this way. It's so bad, God's going to wipe it all out. And not only is it so bad, but only Noah is found righteous in his generation. And that suggests that his DNA was intact, that it hadn't been compromised. That's how much of a cock-a-doodle show it was outside your house. It's so bad, there's only one guy and his family, I think by just guilty by association. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and then his 3 sons' wives. It's that bad. So imagine, trying to just everyday life, man. Well, I bring that up because everyday life right now is doing this. There's a squeeze play, pressure cooker squeeze play occurring. We know, because they said it themselves, the Democratic Party blames evangelical Christians, MAGA people. I've never had a MAGA hat. They blame evangelical Christians, fundamental evangelical Christians, the charismatic, whatever. And they know who they are. I mean, because we were vocal. They were vocal. Lance was vocal. He's the one that did the Isaiah 45 Cyrus connection. I'm thinking, who's the other guy I'm thinking of? He usually opens up Chuck Pierce's Head of the Year conference. His brother's has this amazing book about angels that I still haven't read. Oh my gosh. He was doing the whole going around the United States. Gosh, can't remember his name. Doug Sheets. You got Doug Sheets. You've got Lance Wallner. I mean, okay. There's a pressure. It's right. Christians since the Trump thing, Christians have directly been vocalized. They've been saying Christians are responsible for Trump. Trump's a crook. He's a right-wing nationalist. He's a Nazi, and it's evangelical Christianity. They're nationalists, right? Are to blame for that. We need to round them up. They need to be incarcerated and they need to be rounded up. And you need to do everything you possibly can in public, restaurants, stores, right, to shame them, to bully them, to attack them, because all of this has happened. It's all public record. You can Google this information. It's out there. This is not conspiracy. This is fact. And that and even the guy in the White House, Joe Biden, said, and remember in that State of the Union where he looked like a fascist? He did, said that we were a threat to democracy. And so that's what they believe. That's how they look at us. And then we're sitting here saying, you can't be sexually immoral. You can't be sexually fluid. You can't be all roads lead to heaven. You can't be, God is not inclusive. He's exclusive. No, if you're this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, you're not saved. You're literally not in the Lord's army, I'm in the Lord's. No, you're actually an enemy to the things of God. And you can't, I mean, this is all leading to a major clash and crescendo that we see in Revelation 12:13. They make war against the saints. So, I don't think a lot of us believe what's going to happen. I don't think a lot of us believe where we're headed. If I listen to the Christian left for any amount of time and what they believe is going on, I don't think they've read their entire New Testament. And or they're just completely ignoring, which is what I'm thinking is going on, what it actually says is going on and what's going to happen. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because I'm going to read the list that Paul is writing here. I'm bringing it up because this list is just far too I see it outside my window. God gave them up in the lust of their hearts to impurity, to the vileness of their hearts, lusts, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, to the shameful misuse of each other's bodies. I'm going between English Standard Version and the Complete Jewish Bible, verse 25 of chapter 1. And he did that because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped everything but him. And they did that. They exchanged the truth of God for falsehood by worshiping and serving created things rather than the Creator. The Torah is very clear. Deuteronomy is very clear of what's going to happen to people that do that worship incorrectly. Now, it's for this reason God gave them up to dishonorable passions, to degrading passions. And then it lists in verse 26 and verse 27 an example of those, of what that looks like. In verse 26 and verse 27. And then it says, in other words, since they have not considered God worth knowing, God has given them up to worthless ways of thinking so that they do improper things. Since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. They're filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice, evil, greed, vice, jealousy, murder, quarreling, dishonesty, and ill will, gossips, slanders, haters of God. They're insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They plan evil schemes. Envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanders, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, foolish, faithless, brainless. These are the words being used between these two translations. Heartless, ruthless. Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them, because they don't, just like Israel. Remember the priests, they had their back to the temple, they're doing a sunrise service to Tammuz, and their excuse in Ezekiel was, God's not listening, God doesn't hear us, God doesn't see us, because he's not stopping us. So, it doesn't matter. God's not hearing or seeing. God's not alive. God's dead. We can do whatever we want. They're even saying that if there is a God, he looks like the Trumpers. He looks like MAGA, and we want nothing to do with them. We'd rather, if that's who God is, if that's what God is, we'd rather not have a God that is going to condemn and judge people and burn them in a hell and kill them for loving who they want to love, for being how they want to be, for doing what they want to do. And who are we, or who is anyone, to determine what's good and what's bad, what's right or what's wrong? Man, that was very clear when it came to what happened in Seattle and with Antifa. I mean, everything that's happened in the last 3 years. This is where we're at. And it's only going to get worse. And then, according to Revelation, there's going to be supernatural, spiritual things given permission to do war with what Revelation calls the saints. Those that keep the faith and the testimony of Jesus and keep his commandments. And we're running out of time. We don't know how long we'll have the freedom to do this. And so we're trying to equip you as fast as we possibly can and as deeply as we possibly can to give you what you need to survive what's coming. Yes, we're going longer today because I'm pre-engaged tomorrow. Yeah, we started off by saying there's multiple ministries doing Romans right now. I didn't know that when we decided to do Romans. I'm doing Romans because Nathalie dared me to. So that's probably why so many are doing a Roman study right now. And we're going to talk. It starts in chapter 2, but like I said, there's over 24 verses in Romans on the observance, keeping of Torah, walking in God's covenants. All right. Look for the new moon visible crescent for the second month of Ziv in your area. Last night was the conjunction, so we should see it in the next day or two. Let us know on social media, whether it's Band or Facebook, when you see it, where you see it. Take a picture if you can. That's how we can alert everybody. And it will be the second month. We are not going backwards and starting over with a bib. If you are doing that, that's weird. No backsies, no do-overs. So we will have a Rosh Kodesh this weekend, whether it's tonight or tomorrow. So thank you in advance for those thank you for those that have already sent in first fruits, and we want to thank those that are putting them together. If you're not giving to us, give to somebody. The thing is, you should be giving offerings and gifts to a ministry that feeds you, that equips you, whether that's us or somebody else. The point is that you're keeping the commandment of doing so for your blessing, for your increase, spiritual, financial, right? All that. What else? And tomorrow, I normally would tell you Shabbat Shalom. So Shabbat Shalom for tomorrow. And what else? Yeah.
The views and opinions expressed during our broadcasts are solely those of the broadcast producers, hosts, and/or guests, etc., and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the Travelog Network, its sponsors, or affiliates.